Time keeps on leaving and we keep on moving. When do we pass on our wisdom to the youth? My veteran story, lost arts discussions, fireside chats with a bourbon or two. It's time to hear the stories by our military veterans. Get yourself ready. It's the Lost Arts Podcast. The Lost Arts with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast is giving a voice to our veterans. On today's episode, we'll have my veteran story with Navy veteran Dr. Tyler Reed. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Then consider becoming a TLA patron. That's the Lost Arts patron. It is through donations that we are able to continue recording the podcast and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Just go to the website, click on that patron link, and you can, that's a reoccurring monthly donation. If you don't want to do that and you'd rather give a one-time donation, you can go there, scroll down to the bottom, you can click, you'll see the one-time donation link. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, then email me at thelostartwithandrewcox@gmail.com. Again, that's thelostartwithandrewcox@gmail.com. And as always, we have merchandise for sale. We got hats, we got shirts, we got all kinds of goodies for you. So if you want to help support us, you can do it that way as well. Any donations or anything that you buy is much appreciated. And I'm always looking for new veterans to come on and tell their stories. All right, with that, we're going to get into it. Dr. Tyler Reed, how you doing, Tyler?
Good. I'm good. Glad to be here.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're here because I'm excited about hearing your story. So let's kind of start at the beginning on it. We'll go back to childhood, where you grew up. You know, how was that? And then we'll eventually get into what led you to the military service.
All right. Yeah. So the beginning, from California, my dad was in the Navy. He was a Navy pilot. And then, so I moved around from California and then to Arkansas. And then my dad got out and then I lived in Texas for a little bit and then moved to Connecticut. And then I spent pretty much my majority of my childhood in the, high school and all that in Connecticut. And then from there, went to Keene State College in Keene, New Hampshire. Did my undergrad.
Okay, and then so I know a little bit about you, but let's back up a little bit. So, what did you do through school? What types of activities? Those types of things.
I was a band geek, so trumpet player. Started middle school and fell in love with it. And did the marching band all through high school, took private lessons, made an all-state regionals, did some sports, like the baseball, soccer, and all that. But primarily, I was just a musician from the get-go. And I guess I was good at it. We'll see.
I'd say you were good at it.
Yeah, I try.
And then, so after high school, you say you went to college. Where'd you go again?
It was Keene State College in Keene, New Hampshire. It's like a small little 5,000 undergrad school. I went there for music education, actually. And then, come my senior year, started student teaching, and I was like, heck no. Like, I'm not, like, I love teaching, but I didn't love the politics of the schools, at least the ones that I was like, going to visiting, and then the parents, like I didn't want to deal with the parents, like in a big school setting. So then I actually switched my major to performance in my senior year. So then I had to do another year to make up for all the classes that I didn't take as a performance major.
Oh, no kidding. So how many classes total did you have to do?
It's kind of weird. It's supposed to be a full another year, so like 2 semesters. So it's been like a full 5 years. But during my fall semester, one of my professors said, "Hey, there's a teaching assistant opening at University of Akron, and it's in trumpet. Like, you should audition." And I was like, "Well, I still have like a year left," and it's like in the middle, like December or something. It's like towards the end of the fall semester,
Right.
and they're like, "Just go do it." And so I went there, I auditioned. The trumpet professor uh literally said, he's like, "Look, you're a great person, but you have a lot to learn on playing the trumpet." Like, he's like, "I have undergrads that can outplay you." He's like, "But I'll take you because you're not an egotistical trumpet player." This is literally what he told me.
Okay.
So then my undergrad let me graduate early. So I started my master's at University of Akron in the spring semester. So like January or February. Um, and then with the condition that I would travel back to Keene State in that time to do my senior recital. So I don't know how they did it. I didn't ask any questions, but that's what happened.
Wow. That's a
So
definitely unique situation.
yeah,
But hey, it worked out. So no problems there, huh?
yeah. And then odd enough, um, I took one of the spots of one of the TA that was leaving the master's program was went into the Navy fleet as a musician.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, and
Okay.
I didn't put that together until like way later on.
Wow.
Um, but so yeah, and then yeah, so then I went to University of Akron for my master's for like 2.5 years, 3 years, I think.
Okay.
So
And while you were there, did you enjoy that aspect of school, or was it?
uh it was eye-opening because like Keene State College is like a small little, the music program's really small. So like when I came in as a freshman, like I thought that I would be sitting like last chair. And then I came in and I was sitting like first chair, first trumpet, assistant. And I was like, well, there's something like I don't feel right about this. Like it's almost like a challenge kind of thing. Like I want to be challenged. And I actually, to back up, I actually went and auditioned for the Peabody School of Music,
Oh, okay.
um, because I was like, I shouldn't be sitting first chair as a freshman. And I got waitlisted at Peabody, I think, and then I just ended up staying at Keene.
Right.
But I love University of Akron. It was good, great school, great professors. My Trump professor Scott Johnson was awesome. And like Bob Jorgensen, who was the band director, was just amazing. So like you know, they challenged me, and like I was, since I auditioned there and the trumpet teacher said like, "Oh, I have freshmen that can play better than you." Like
Mm,
I That's when my nerves kicked in,
yeah.
and like he wasn't lying. There, like the competition there was incredible. There's a lot of good trumpet players there. Um,
Wow.
so I went through that, and uh, luckily I graduated. I did all my classes, didn't get in trouble.
That's always a positive. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I applied. I had a choice. I want to go out and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a professional trumpet player." And towards the end of that, all my professors were like, "Just go get your doctorate." And I was like, "But like, why? That's more school. I've done like 8 years of school already, or something like that."
Yeah.
And you get a little cocky, and I was like, "No, I can make it. Like, I don't need a doctorate." And they actually convinced me. They're like, "Just go audition." So I auditioned. Yeah, I don't remember where I auditioned. It's probably like 5 or 6 universities, and
Wow.
I went to Texas Tech, and the professor there, Will Strider, um, sat down, played my audition, and uh, God, what did he say? He's like, um, "Well, the good news is like I can fix you, but the bad news is that like you're a terrible trumpet player." And
Oh my God.
it was something along the lines of that, and I was like, "This is what I've always wanted to hear," because I think there's professors out there that are like, oh, you sound great, just keep working. You sound great, but that brutal honesty of like, you sound like crap, but I can fix you. And I was like, I want to study with you. Um, and so I went to Texas Tech in 2010, I think. Got a TA there, so teacher assistant, and you get put in the graduate brass quintet. And then it started getting weird for me as playing the trumpet. Um, I don't think a lot of people know this, but um, I could play like 2 or 3 days, like really good, and then like the next 3 or 4 days, I could barely play my trumpet. And
Wow.
it's kind of like that through my undergrad and my master's, but I was playing even more at Texas Tech, and it was really apparent. Like, I had to do gigs and I couldn't play. And my
Hmm.
teacher, Will Strider, literally just asked me the most random question. He's like, "Have you ever like had lip damage, like damaged your chops?" And I go, "I don't know. I don't think so. Like I'll ask my parents." And so like I called my parents and I was like, "Hey, did I ever like bash my face in or something? I just don't remember." And they're like, "Yeah, you don't remember that?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So like when I was really little and I had the training wheels like on your bike, so my
Yeah.
dad took the training wheels off and I was like going down the street and I saw like a big boulder in the street and I was like, "Oh, I can like wheelie. I seen my brother do it." And I ate shit pretty much. And bashed my lips like I hit the pavement, I guess. And on top of that, we had a dog and I stepped on her tail and she like jumped up and grabbed my front lip and
No
like
kidding.
chewed it a little bit and never put two and two together. So during my doctorate, they gave me a choice. We had two professors, so it was like Max Matson and Will Strider, and they go, um, "Do you want to do an embouchure change?" Like usually that happens in like high school or your undergrad, but
Hmm.
I made it this far, and so I said yes if you think it's gonna work. And so I literally sounded like, you know, a third grader learning to play trumpet for about a year and a half or two
Wow.
years. Um, and they took me out of the graduate brass quintet. They took me out, I think, of all the ensembles, and I literally was just in a practice room every day. I was still teaching lessons, but like I couldn't play for the undergrads. I was like, oh, I'll just do this, and because I sound like crap. Um, so it was like a 3-year program, and I was there 5 years, rebuilding like my embouchure and the way I play. And I think it was the fourth year I made it in the orchestra, which was super competitive. I was in all the top ensembles. They put me back in the graduate brass quintet. And like it finally all was coming together. But the unfortunate thing is like when I was playing, my playing ability when I graduated should have been my playing ability when I started. So
Yeah.
even though I had the education and you know um, learning how to teach it, a higher level and the repertoire and everything, I had the knowledge, but I was still keeping up on my playing.
Right.
Um, and that's and so I graduated in 2015. Did my dissertation and defense and all that fun stuff.
How was
Uh,
that for you?
it's stressful. So the comps are even more stressful because it's music theory and music history, and like the history was like, hey, learn everything from dirt till now, anything music, and then you have 3 hours to take the exam and it's pass fail.
Wow.
And if you fail it twice, you can't take it ever again. You won't get your doctorate. So it's like no pressure, right?
Wow.
Um, Yeah. So I actually thought I was gonna fail one and I lost a bet and so I had to get a tattoo. I bet my
Oh,
friend that
no kidding.
yeah, I was like they're like, you're gonna pass. I was like, no, like I'm gonna fail. And they're like, well, bet, well, if you pass, if we both pass, we have to go get tattoos. And I was like, fine, whatever. And so
Well, what'd you end up getting then?
it's a Beethoven quote. He like wrote a letter to one of his students, and it's like, don't only practice your art, but force your way into its secrets. For that and knowledge will raise man to the divine. Ludwig van Beethoven.
Huh.
So
I like it.
yeah, it was the most painful tattoo ever. Yeah.
What was it on your side? Where was it?
Yeah, it was on my ribs. Worth
Yeah, that's a good spot.
stupid. Um, yeah, and then so I graduated. Uh, my dissertation was on uh, metallurgical analysis and spectral analysis of modern trumpets. So I did like I get to play with like a like pretty much radioactive gun that like they use it for soil samples. So like they put it in the soil like at a farm, and they can tell
Yeah.
you instantly like what's in it. So I use that on trumpets, and then I traveled around. I went to Spain and the UK for research. I call it research. I just had fun, but and I went to I went to Bach Factory, the Shire Factory, Blackburn garage. I mean, it's not, he has a garage, and learn how they made and what brass they're using, and because for trumpet, I'm a nerd out on trumpets, I guess a little bit, but um, they're like, oh, you can get yellow brass or red brass or like all this other stuff. And I was like, well, what makes it sound good? Because like everyone says their instruments sound the best with this brass and stuff. So I did research, use that gun to get the exact properties of like the copper and zinc. Yeah, it's copper and zinc. Yeah, to see what they're making and compare it to what they're saying. Um, and and then I played spectral analysis in an anechoic chamber, so it's like completely silent. Like you can hear, it's so quiet you can hear your heartbeat. It's
Oh, wow.
creepy. And played all these instruments. Like I played like 20 different makes and model and of like B flat trumpets to see on the spectral analysis, like sound analysis of if there's gaps. Because and the research behind that's like you have a student that's like, oh, like I keep playing this high G and it's like really like thin, and it's like everyone blames the player. They're like, well, you need to do this and that. But we're finding out that certain trumpets didn't resonate at that like frequency. Like there's a dead spot in the horn.
And that's because of the material or whatever it's made of.
Material construction, like the amount of solder, or like, if it's raw brass or lacquered or silver plated. I mean, it kind of all goes in there. But what we found out was, it kind of came down to the brass. So it was like kind of the first step into a bigger project. And I was hoping later on to get back into it, and but I never did. But that's my nerdy trumpet dissertation story.
That sounds like that should be a book, and I think you should write a book about it.
That's so much work, though.
But you're a doctor.
Yeah, of music. But
still, that's more than I am.
Yeah, it's just a piece of paper. That's what it is.
It means a lot to me. I don't know.
Wow.
Just saying. So, okay, so you Texas Tech, finished there at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Got your doctorate, and then where'd you go? What'd you do?
So at that time, I moved back home to Connecticut, and I started applying to like colleges and universities to be a trumpet professor. And at that time, I think you remember Vin Souders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were at Texas Tech together. And so she had already, I think by the time I graduated, had already gone through like boot camp and A school and was already I think she's in Newport, Rhode Island, at that band. And she was kind of hounding me to like, hey, come take an audition. We have openings. Come do it. Like, and so I think, yeah. So I drove up to, Rhode Island and auditioned there, and then got the
Something with the
call.
band up there. The Navy
Yeah.
band?
So I went to the band, or set it up through Millington or whatever, and then I forget the process. But I auditioned there. I forgot who sat on my audition board. And then I got the call saying that, like, hey, we want you. And, if you're interested. And then from there, I said, absolutely, that'd be great. And went to the recruiter and went to boot camp, which was
And what year was that?
2016. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
May of 2016 is when I went to boot camp. And so the turnaround, because I graduated in like August of 2015, moved home, was applying to jobs, and then by May 2016, I was already on my way to boot camp.
Wow, that's pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, and going through boot camp as a 30-year-old was great.
So, talk to me about the challenges of being the 30-year-old in boot camp.
I never, I don't know, dealing with a whole bunch of like 18 to probably 21-year-olds, I would say, um, it was like they're away at like sleepaway camp. And I was like, I'm here for a job. Like, I'm gonna just do whatever my RDCs say and like just get through this so I can go to, A school and then go out to the fleet. Like, that was my mentality. Like, I just have to get through this. And they're idiots. Like, but at the time, they're sitting there, everyone divulges everything. They're like, oh, I'm from here. I'm this old, I've done this. My dad did this, was a Navy like admiral or something. We're like, dude, we don't care. And they would ask me, they're like, hey, Reed, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm old enough to be here, and then they're like, where are you from? I was like, America. And I did that for weeks. Um, and it wasn't until one of my RDCs is a chief, and he called me in front of everybody, and he goes, Reed, how old are you? I was like, old enough, chief. And he's like, no, how old are you? I was like, I'm like 30 or 31, I think, at that time. And it's like the gasps of, you know, we didn't think you're that old. Um, and then he's like, "Oh, well, did you go to school?" And I was like, "Yes, chief." And he's just like, "Well, what did you do?" And I was like, I went to college." And I kept trying to not say it. And then he's like, "If you do not just tell me everything right now, you're gonna do, I'm gonna pull out the card, and the card like has all the, you know, punishment workout stuff."
Right.
And I,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Fuck." So I ended up saying, got my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate. I'm gonna be a musician in the Navy. And actually, after I said all that, my RDCs left me alone. Like
No kidding.
they'll go down the line, yell at someone, and they'll come up to me and they're like, "Hey doc, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Good, petty officer, good." And then go the next person yell at them. They just like didn't care anymore. Like once they found out how old I was and that like I lived life a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
they
I've got to say, it's definitely a unique thing. Typically speaking, if you're talking to anybody with a master's degree or a doctorate, you're talking like officer candidate school typically. And
Yeah,
in the music program, it's not that way. It's you start out, at the bottom,
yeah,
and then listed ranks, work your way up, and then maybe eventually you can become an officer. But it's definitely a different beast. So when people, you see people coming through the schoolhouse here in Virginia, and like you did with a doctorate, you're like, oh
yeah,
my god, yeah, this guy been around a little bit.
a little bit. But yeah, they actually left me alone. And it's kind of great. Like I just did what I needed to do, and they I because in the beginning I was just grouped in with everyone else, and they kind of just was like, whatever, you're fine. Um, and yeah, so graduated boot camp in July, I think, and then went to A school, and then had to deal with
So,
you.
so went to A school here in Virginia Beach at the School of Music, Naval School of Music.
Mm.
Talk to me about the Naval School of Music. Like, what was the good? What was the bad? What do you remember about that?
Um,
You
the
don't have to
good,
dime anybody out necessarily, but
yeah, okay. I'll try
give
not
us the
to.
good and the bad.
Um, the good was I think the people I met and whether I saw them out later in the fleet or catching up with them later on. I think that was the best part. I think I hated A school. Um, like I felt that when people found out my education, it put me in a different bracket or expectation or higher expectation um, than what everyone else was being evaluated on.
Yeah.
And so, I play something that was like, well, you need to play it like this. And then, Joe Schmo next door, like, played not so great and scored higher. And I'm like, I'm not an idiot, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm not gonna say that that happened necessarily,
yeah,
but I'm sure it did. I could
yeah.
I could definitely see that.
I mean, you saw how frustrated I was when I was there. I mean, I think that was I think one of the best things is being pulled out by certain, like, you and other instructors there that, they're just like, hey, just get through it. You're good. Like, you're going to be great in the fleet. Don't worry about it. Just play the game, like, whatever. And I think that was probably like the saving grace because I don't think if anyone said that to me, I think I would have lost it a little bit. I think I
Yeah.
did lose it a little bit, but
Nah, you were fine.
um,
I do remember. I remember because we had because I was teaching drill band at the time, right? And I remember sitting in the classroom. It's like your first week, and I always did the same spiel with everybody. I'm going down, and I was like, "What's our education level? Like, who went to high school? Okay, anybody go to college? Yeah, okay, got a couple go to college." So I'm like, "Okay, anybody got their degree?" Like, yeah, a couple of them got their degree. I'm like, "Okay, cool. Anybody got a master's degree?" And like, yeah,
yeah,
I got a master's degree. I was like, "Okay, you got a? Is there anybody got a doctorate?" And you're like, yeah, yeah, I got a
yeah,
doctorate. And I was like, oh my God, what in the world? I
yeah,
was like, here I am with a high school education. I'm like, oh man, this is just going to be great.
yeah. But it's just like, I think the fast forward and to rewind, I met, there's some other people that with their doctors and stuff they went through and were out in the fleet and different, I think had different mentality than I did because I was like, I know what I'm getting into. Um, and I know like look, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. It doesn't matter what's on, my wall of degrees. It's like, what does this say? Um,
Right.
and so I think I understood that. And like that's why I didn't mind like swabbing the deck or cleaning toilets or emptying everyone's trash cans is like part of the job. Everyone has to do it, you know.
Very
Um,
true.
where I think other people had, you know, well, I have my doctorate. It's like, well, who gives a shit?
I remember this is the other thing that at the school whenever I was teaching, but you were I was teaching drill band. I don't know what we were doing, and I saw you, and all of a sudden I'm like, I wonder how this makes him feel. So I asked you, I was like, how does it make you feel that a guy with a high school education is up here teaching you? And I think you had one of the best answers I've ever heard. And it was, as you said, well, you know what you're talking about. So it's all good here. And I was like, All right. Well, let's move on then.
Yeah,
It's
I
just that
mean,
simple.
you learn from everybody. I mean, like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Um, there is that time that you called me out in drill band though. I was like space cadet mode watching a plane go by, and you're like up front, and you just hear Reed. I was like, oh crap. He's like, tell me what I just said, and I was like, and I regurgitated something, but I was right, and I think even surprised you because you're like, well, yeah, but you totally caught me just going, oh look, there's a plane. I'm not paying attention. Well,
That happens. It's all good.
probably almost crap my pants right there. I was like, oh shit. Um, but it's good. And I think to back up a little bit, I glazed over like why I got into the military. Besides my
Oh
friend
yeah.
Vin convincing me. So uh, is it both? Yeah, I think both my grandfathers, my dad, and my uncle were all Navy. They all
Wow.
served. So enlisted and officer. So like my dad was a pilot. My uncle, he's my godfather, was actually flew with my dad and trained my dad.
Wow.
And
Now,
then
what did
like
your dad fly?
the H-46s.
Okay.
Um, and then my grandfather was a master chief, and then
Wow.
my other grandfather was, I think, maybe a lieutenant, but he's like an engineer or something. I forget. I should know that. Um, but yeah, that's the reason. I mean, I grew up with sea stories, like all day, every day, Navy this, Navy that, and so that's primarily the main reason I was like totally okay. Like I always wanted to join and be in the Navy, and then the fact that the opportunity presented itself that I could do something I love and also be in the Navy, was just icing on the cake, and so that's primarily like why I didn't blink twice. I didn't even tell my parents that I went on audition. I just went and did it.
No kid.
Yeah, and then I was
What
like,
they
"Hey,
say
I'm
about
going."
that?
Uh, I mean, they're just happy. They're like, do you know what you're getting into? And it's like, yeah, I do. You know, um, so yeah, and then so after A school, unless you want to know anything more about A school.
No, unless you have something else at A school that you want to talk about, but it's totally up to you.
Nah, like
All right.
I think I deleted a lot of stuff.
That's all good. Well, yeah, let's talk about where you went after A school.
After that, I was my first duty station was in Pearl Harbor at Pac Fleet Band. So I went out there in January of 2017, and then loved it out there. Loved the band. Uh, enlisted officers, everything, good people, um, and met Luke Reed, who became like pretty much we were like twins, the Reeds.
That's right.
And then yeah, I loved out there doing all the ceremonies, the change of commands, the ship arrivals, and I think the biggest, um, most respectful thing is playing taps out there because it's nonstop, and you do it. I had the honor of playing, uh, I think two internments on the Arizona.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, it's incredible. But the other like, and then the Punch Bowl, K Bay, and then I think I played in almost every cemetery on the island on Oahu. By the time I stopped playing.
So talk to us a little bit about playing taps, right? So it's a unique type of thing, in my opinion, to go out and do that on a regular basis. And from my experience and trumpet players going out and doing that, it can get a little daunting at times depending on what's going on or whatever. And a lot of times it brings it home and you're like, oh, holy cow, this is crazy. But kind of talk us through, like, emotionally, how was that for you?
I mean, also it depends on where it is, the location, and a lot of times you do talk to the family, and you gotta have your shit together. You gotta have your like you gotta be able to like turn a switch on and off if you're like an emotional person, especially. Um, and the hardest ones um were especially the active duty,
Oh yeah.
because a lot of times you're doing it in the chapel, and you're sitting through the entire ceremony hearing about this individual, and their family's there, their shipmates are there, and then they do the muster roll call, and I mean that's the hardest thing ever to sit through. They start, you know and they go down the ranks, like present, and then they just keep calling that person's name, and it's just dead silent. And then usually right after that is when you play taps, or like soon after that. And so
Right.
that was the hardest ones I had to do. I did a few active duty ones, for the Navy, and actually the Marines too. Um, and those were hard. Because you just, even though you don't know them, you're feeling it. And
I remember, I haven't done a lot of memorial services. I'm a drummer by trade. But I do remember when we got back from Iraq and we did a full division, was out on the field, and it was for everybody during that time, that died. And man, that was one emotional ride. And I can't imagine the emotional ride that, you're young, I know you were a little bit older, but
yeah,
your young sailors, your young Marines, Army, whoever it is that's going out and doing these things. I mean, that has got to be nerve wracking, all the way around, for sure.
I mean it is. And like on top of that, little like so like the honor guard, or the flag detail, if we couldn't show up, they use that stupid bugle with the speaker in the end of it,
Yeah.
and they would tell me all these horror stories that they would like, they would be standing out there, push the button and bring up the bugle, and then the it would fall out and start like rolling down the hill, like
Whoa.
sounding taps, or that they didn't. I don't know if it had like batteries, or if you had to charge it, or that like halfway through taps the battery would die. And
Oh,
so like every time that we were there, they were just like, thank you so much for being here. Like it means a lot. But it also puts more pressure on you, because that speaker bugle actually sounds awesome. And
mhm.
so, and everyone knows taps, even if they don't even know the name, that's called taps. Like everyone knows how it goes. And so if you screw it up, or if like, flub a note, chip a note or something, like everyone knows.
Yeah,
And that it's even, I think, more pressure to just like, don't screw up, do your best. But we're human.
very
Uh,
true.
yeah. So
I'll tell you another story. So, I don't know if you know him, Rob Marroquin Massart. Marroquin.
I don't think so.
We were at, First Marine Division together. Well, actually, we were at 29 Palms together. Then we were at 3 MEF together. Then we were at First Mar Div together. So our first three bands, right?
Yeah.
And so I got to know him really, really well. He's still a great friend today. Sometimes he comes on the podcast and talks and hangs out. But uh, you know, my dad had passed away. My dad was a Marine veteran. Way back in the day, he was in Korea. So he passed away, and I was home on leave, and I called him, and I was like, "Hey, man, I want somebody that I know and that I trust, to come
Mhm.
in and play taps." And he was like, "Whoa, seriously?" I was like, "Yeah, man." So I flew him out, and so it was a couple of days before the funeral, and so he met my family. He was there with us. the whole thing. And
Yeah.
then it come time for, now it's the graveside. He's going to play taps. And he told me, he's like, that was the most nerve-wracking thing that I've ever done, because it wasn't just like the typical I show up, I may introduce myself to somebody, but then I play taps. It was, he knew my family, he knew me
Yeah.
personally, so it made it that much more intense for him. But I will tell you, he did a fantastic job, and it was
Awesome.
absolutely incredible. And I would say the majority of buglers that go out and do it, you know, active duty buglers that do a fantastic job. I mean, every now and again,
Yeah.
maybe they make a mistake, but typically it's going to be on point, you know.
Yeah. No, it can get tough. I know there's some trumpet players that like it just doesn't bother them. Like I think it's kind of more of a rare breed, but the majority of everyone else, you know, it's like we all have our stories of when something affected you or something happened or like you know, it was like just an incredible opportunity to play on the Arizona.
Mhm.
And everyone, like some of my coworkers now, they're asked like, so what was like, they're like, we don't want to be like morbid, but what was like your favorite TAPS experience? Um, and I always say, honestly, it was the veterans. I played several of these that the only people that were at the grave site was the Navy. They didn't have any friends. They didn't have any family. A lot of them were homeless. And they found out, you know, that they're a veteran and so the cemetery or the funeral home arranged, you know, they arrange all the paperwork, and we go out. And so those are the most memorable because there's no one there. There's no family. It wasn't like they couldn't fly out. There's like, no, there's no one to contact.
Holy cow.
And that I
That's
think,
it. That's incredible, man. That is one thing that I appreciate about the military and the veterans and it does not matter. We are going to pay tribute
yeah,
to everyone that has served, right? And that's one of the big things I talk about with the veterans on the podcast and stuff. But it's, you got to know that you matter. You know what you did was important, and
absolutely.
and it's so much so that even if you have no friends and family there, the military is going to be there to support it, and that is a fantastic thing. It's incredible, man. And I think
Yeah.
that there's no other, you know, at least in America, there's no other organization, in my opinion, that is going to do the same types of things. And you know, that's one of the things that I love about our job.
Yeah. And like and that's like the thing is like I'm one of like maybe how many of us were there? Like six of us. I'm one of the six people that was there for this individual.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, those are the ones that stick out in my mind because it's like we're the Navy is you know paying tribute and you know thanking them and
Man, that's,
even though no one else is there.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
incredible, man. And kudos to you for
Yeah,
that. Is the most memorable thing, man.
absolutely.
That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
that, I'm gonna be honest, I'm sitting here, I got chills. I
Well, I
got the
get chills
pimples. So
thinking about it
yeah,
because it
it's
brings me
incredible.
right back to that. You know, it's just like, and those were more important to like. It's weird. It's like I wanted to play like even better than my best at those ones than you know like you know some of the other ones. You know, you just kind of get in this mindset. But then when I was there at those ones, it's like I just need to play my socks off. You know.
Yeah, that much more important.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but no one knows about it, you know?
Yeah. 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 Well, I gotta say, that is an incredible story. I love that. So you're at Hawaii, and how long were you in Hawaii total?
Just about 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so at this point, you know, you're coming up. Did you re-enlist at this point, or what had happened there? Can you walk us through that?
So you want the meat and potatoes, huh? Uh,
Whatever you feel comfortable talking about, man.
no, it's 100% okay. So in 2018, just prior to that, that's like July of 2018. Just prior to that, the brass quintet went out to Timor-Leste, so it's a small little island above Australia, and we were doing embassy support. So we were out there, I think like a week or something, and so we played on the radio. The embassy, wow, in preparation or anticipation for Fourth of July, they did a fireworks show there on like at the embassy, and then like brought out like these McDonald's trucks and Burger King trucks and stuff. Is very interesting. You know,
Wow.
This is America. Um,
And where was that at, you said?
Timor-Leste.
Wow, man, I don't even know where that's at.
Yeah, it's a small little island that's like just kind of like up and coming, just I guess above a third world country, I guess, in
Okay.
the grand scheme of things. But we have an embassy there, so we flew out there and flew commercial and stayed
Nice.
in a nice hotel. For it was a nice hotel actually. But it's funny because there are Seabees out there and they're like sleeping in tents, and we show we're like, oh, we're
It's
staying at the
the
hotel,
hotel.
the one hotel on the island. That's where we're staying. Um, but that's crazy. The hotel had like, I don't know, like 20-foot concrete walls all around it with barbed wire and like these automated gates with like a huge courtyard. Um,
Wow.
I don't know why, but like we felt safe. We had embassy escorts, but I mean they weren't even armed, so they were just there to you know be liaisons and stuff.
Right.
So when I was out there, my tooth started hurting,
Okay.
and so I'm like, oh man, my tooth's hurting. So we get back, and I think it's 2018. So RIMPAC is like a huge, like all the nations, they bring the Navy ships there, and then we had a big joint concert. So like we played with the Australian Navy, the Canadians, the UK, I think, or like so they sent over band members as well. And we did like a big joint concert. Also during RIMPACs, they just do like kind of war games and stuff. And I was like, man, my tooth's hurting. And I won't say his name, but um, the Master Chief goes like, you need to go to dental. And I was like, okay. Um, and so I went there and like, you need like emergency root canal. And
Wow.
I was like, okay, like, sure. And they're like, but we're overbooked, so we're sending you like offsite. And I went there. They did the first part, like it was a Monday, and they like extracted like most of the roots, I guess, or something. Um, and then the next day I played the joint concert. And then a week later I had to go back to for them to finish it. And
Now, was this Navy medicine at this point, or were you out in town?
it was out in town.
Out in town. Okay.
And at this point, um, it wasn't, it was just one in a million thing that I got nerve damage to my tongue. And so the right side of my tongue was like numb. It's still numb and tingly to this day. And I couldn't play. And so after that, uh, Navy Dental was awesome. And they took really good care of me. Sent me to every specialist, neurologist, speech that like therapists, like oral surgeons. They were doing research because I couldn't do my job. And
Yeah.
when I walked in there, I was like, I can't do my job. Is like everything stopped, and they're like, what? Um, so they're great, and um, but the thing
Well,
is, hmm?
sorry to interrupt. So, just for the listeners, for those that aren't musicians and they don't really
Yeah.
understand, like, what is the importance of being able to utilize your tongue as a musician, trumpet player?
Well, it's articulation. So like just tonguing, like individual notes or multiple notes. Even the arch of your tongue, even though you can probably get in a bar fight with other trumpet players about it, it all affects the way you play. So, and you don't really think about it until something goes wrong and you go, why can't I play? So I really couldn't feel and didn't, because I couldn't feel it, and it just wasn't working. I just couldn't play. Like, my chops were fine. Um, but the more I played, like, I think it was like they said I was like overworking my tongue because I was like overcompensating because I couldn't feel it. It would cramp up, and then I couldn't play for like an hour or two. And that was like after
Wow.
like 20 minutes of just regular practice that I was, accustomed to, like nothing intense. Um, and yeah, so from that was like July 9th, 2018. Um, and then from there, they took me out of all the ensembles. I didn't play, but I was stubborn, and said I can play taps. So from, I would say about, I don't know, the next year, all I did was play taps. I mean, I was almost every day, I was just sitting at one of the cemeteries waiting for play taps.
No kidding. And now, was that difficult to play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was stubborn. And I played one gig. It was like, I don't know, a few months into it. And it wasn't bad. It was bad for me, but it wasn't as bad as I think it was. But I screwed up taps. Because my tongue, like, I don't remember what happened, but it's bad.
Right.
Uh, and so I walked into the Master Chief's office and was just like, can't do this. Like, I screwed up, blah blah blah. And they were, this whole time they were pushing me to go to like mental health, to go to therapy, because
Mhm.
I was distraught over this, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna because it did get better to an extent, and then it plateaued.
Right.
Um, and yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing he ever said was, he's like, don't you think it's time to go get help, uh, mentally and emotionally? And it's the best thing I ever did, actually. Is
Yeah.
one of the ways I was able to deal with it through all that, even though I was totally against it in the beginning.
I think pretty much I was too. I ain't
Yeah.
gonna lie. Like, I had my issues, whatever, and I was totally against it. My wife finally convinced me to go in and talk, and okay, it worked. It was good. I learned a lot,
Yeah.
but uh, it's a tough go. Especially in the military. You look at our environment and how
Yeah.
we look at things. We look at that as a weakness. Going to get help is a weakness. You can't do your thing. You can't do this. You can't do that. Uh, and for me now that I have experienced it and gone through it, I
Mhm.
can say that yes, it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
Those people, psychiatrists, all those people, uh, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of research, and it's stuff that's helped me along the way. So I can totally kind of, well, I can't completely relate to your
Right,
situation, but
definitely.
I can understand it, right?
Yeah, and I was stubborn. I was like, I'm not going. I'm fine, and I wasn't fine. Um,
Yeah.
and I learned that the more I went, and then they're like, oh, you need to do group therapy, and I was like, hell no, I'm not doing group therapy. And then they're like, well, you don't really have a choice. And it turned out a few months later, I was like, group therapy was probably the best thing for me.
Yeah.
Even though why I was there was so vastly different than anyone else, they all like related somehow, some way, or gave me different viewpoints, and like, yeah,
And I'm
it was
assuming
good.
the group therapy was military. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, it's all yeah, it's all Navy personnel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they're all there for different reasons. And I was like, you see those movies where like someone goes to like therapy for the first time, group therapy or something, and they go to the person and they say pass. They're like,
Right.
you need to share, and you're like, pass. I did that for like 3 months. I didn't
No
say
kidding.
I didn't say a word. All I said was my name, and they're like, would you like to share? And I was like, no, pass. And like 3 months into it, I think I finally was like, this is why I'm here. And like I should have said it from day one because
Yeah.
I'm sitting here listening to everyone else, giving some input, you know, if I thought it was, if it could help. Um, and they helped me so much. And they had no idea about like music or anything like that. So, or like exactly what I was going through. But yeah, so
And I think that's something that all veterans can learn from. And
yeah,
I'm glad. Thank you for bringing that up. I do appreciate it.
yeah,
But all veterans can learn from what it is that you're talking about. I there's a show that, and I can't remember the name of shows and stuff, but there's a show that I watch with the wife sometimes, and it's like alcohol, right? So it's like AA type of meetings or whatever. It's comedy, whatever. But it's the same type of scenario that you're talking about, where people can get together and discuss things and talk about it, and everyone can relate to some way somehow, even if they're not a
yeah,
musician, they're infantry or whatever, right? So we can all relate in some way to that. And I think that's fantastic for veterans specifically. So thanks for bringing that up.
no,
What would you
definitely.
say to anybody out there that may be struggling, when it comes to therapy, when it comes to group therapy, those types of things? What would you tell them?
Just do it. Just, I mean, uh, kick and scream to, not do it. And but it's the best thing. I don't know how I would have gotten through it without it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I went to like pretty dark place. Like I lost my, you know, I did all this schooling is what I love to do. It was my hobby. It was my passion. It was also my career. It was my reason of being in the Navy. And then, one little, you know, accident and I can't, I lost it all.
Right.
And
Yeah.
accepting that.
I mean,
Yeah.
you look like even after high school, you went on, you got your bachelor, then you went master's, and you got your doctorate. That's a lot of time spent
Yeah.
specifically to your craft, and to get that taken away, that's a rough go, man.
Yeah. And that was tough to deal with. And at the time I, was just being like, no, I'm fine. Everything will be fine. And when they're like, it might not be fine. I was like, no, like they'll come back. I just gotta practice more. Like I'll adapt, to be able to keep playing even with like a messed up tongue. Um, it didn't work.
Yeah,
No matter,
you did the typical military thing, and you said, "No, it'll be
yeah,
okay. I'm going to push through."
yeah, and yeah, it didn't work. And um, it finally came to a point where they're like, hey, we've tried everything, and the only thing we haven't tried is you to stop playing and just let it, because they're like, you probably just keep aggravating the nerve and like, overexerting, like trying to make it work. And they're like, just stop. And that's the only thing we haven't done. And that was, I think 2019 or even 2018, maybe. I don't remember. Um, and so I just stopped playing. And then I just did like admin work in the band while everyone else is practicing and going on these gigs. And um, they tried to rope me in to do like percussion for some of the ceremonies, and I was like, no, like I want to play my trumpet. Like that's why I'm here. Um,
Yeah,
but I did play bass drum one time.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
everyone should play bass drum at least one time in a ceremony. That's
yeah.
what I say.
Um, and then from there, because I wasn't getting better, um, it was a choice to um, like change my rate. stay enlisted and, just stay in the Navy or apply to be an officer. And then I talked to, uh, some of the senior enlisted and officers and gave me both sides advice, yeah, you can totally go officer. It'd be awesome. And then they're like, um, you know, maybe you should just get out of the Navy. There's better opportunities out there, or, things like that. And it's good advice. And it really came down to my dad and my uncle. Um, I talked with them, and then they talked like behind my back, and then came back around, and they both said, as being, naval officers, and my uncle even was, like captain of the Merchant Marines, and then was like working at the Pentagon. Um, he's just like, Tyler, you're what, 33, 34 years old, and you want to be a brand new officer. He's like, there are so many more opportunities to serve, if you still want to serve your country as a civilian. And he goes, if you're 10 years younger, I would say go for it. But he's like, you're going against, you know, he's like, your progression and promotion is your age is most likely going to get in the way of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And he's like, you're going against younger guys and people that went to, academy and all this. And, you know, he's like, there's other opportunities out there. And so that's when I decided to get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was an incredibly tough decision for you. I mean, you look back at the traditions of your family, and how many people served in the Navy and those types of things. That's a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that your dad, your uncle were there to kind of give you sound advice,
Yeah.
that way, sage, what am I trying to say? Wise counsel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good deal, man.
Yeah. So I mean, their advice was that pretty much like I trust them. And and so that's what I decided. And it was tough because like I love being in the Navy.
Yeah.
I love there's things we don't like, everyone doesn't like. But the people and the experiences and the structure of it all, I really enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
it was tough. But yeah, I got out in 2020, right when COVID was a thing. So
Lucky you.
I barely got off the island because they shut down the island like a few days after like my flight got out. Yeah, and so that was got out there and then wound up here in Virginia.
All right. So I think this is a good place to kind of stop part one, and we'll come back for part two. But I definitely want to hear the rest of the story, and where you've gone, what you've done, those types of things. Okay. I clue to everybody. I may know a little bit more about what's going on than you do, but but it's a great story, and you got some great things going on. So I definitely want to jump into all that as well. But with that, do you have anything else that you would like to say before we cut this thing out?
I don't think so.
Don't think so?
I don't think so.
All right.
Unless I'm supposed to say something.
You don't have to. You do whatever you want, man.
Well, okay.
That's good stuff. All right. So for all the listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to Tyler's story. Absolutely incredible story. Perseverance and overcoming and adapting and just moving on and doing whatever it is he needs to do. And a perfect example of reaching out and getting help when they need them. And speaking of reaching out and getting help when you need it, if you're a veteran out there and you're struggling, you need some help, and you're thinking about hurting yourself or anything like that, you can always dial 988, press option 1. That goes to the VA. They're going to help you get in contact with somebody that'll help you out. If you don't want to call somebody, you rather text, you can always text 838-255-30 they'll be able to, same type of thing. They're going to be able to help you and push you in the direction that you need and get you the help that you need. Even still, if you struggle with doing text and you don't want to do that, and you're prefer to chat online or something like that, you could always reach out. Go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. There's a chat icon. All you gotta do is click on it. You can hit them up. And the same thing, they're going to put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But one veteran's life lost is one too many. I care about you. I know Tyler cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you, and we want what's best. So please reach out and ask for the help. But with that, Tyler, thanks again. I appreciate it. We're going to come back for part 2. To all my listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.